Hi, welcome guys. Raccoon City Pizza here. I'm joined by Serving Zombies. This is going to be the first video in a series. It's going to be called Raccoon City Roots, where we're going to be talking about how fans got into the series, what the series means to them, and yeah, and we're also going to be just casually chatting in general, and kind of going over some things of the franchise. So, Serving Zombies, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
What's going on, Mr. Raccoon City Pizza? It's been a little bit. It's good to talk to you. Nice to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I got me a little YouTube channel, Serving Zombies. At this time with it, I focus a little more on shorts. I'm trying to build my editing abilities, because
Mhm.
learning all that from scratch and having no skills, it's been a fun experience. I always wanted to make, Resident Evil content, and now I'm doing it. I'm actually getting to meet, a lot of cool people. I got to meet you. I've met a few others. I even got my wife doing it, and she is
Mhm.
super shy. But I've been a Resident Evil fan for gosh, over 20 years now. Like, I mean, you can see the collection behind me, man. Like this stuff
Mhm.
for the most part, dude, I'd eat, sleep, and breathe it sometimes.
Yeah. No, yeah, man. I know exactly what you mean. I'm the same way. I've been playing the game since I was a little kid, you know. Of course, I was born in 1998, so I didn't quite get to experience all the old games as they came out, but I still grew up playing them, and I'm the same way. It's something that's followed me throughout my entire life.
Dude, I feel like that's probably born 1990. Yeah, you're born on the Raccoon City, the same year as the Raccoon City incident, right?
Yeah.
Was it this
Yeah.
1998?
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, I remember. Yeah, no, because I'm um, what was it? I think because I was born in 1987. I'm 37 now. I can't even remember how old I was on experience. I know that my like first ever Resident Evil experience. I was like this little kid, and my mom like stepdad took me over to like their friend's house, and
Mhm.
I think it was Resident Evil 2. Like the intro was playing. You know how it kind of flashes back to like the zombie like looking back at you or whatever.
Yeah.
And as we walked in the house, that popped up and had like the little music or whatever going with it. And me being a very timid kid, like seeing that, it scared me so bad that I ran behind my parents' like friend's house couch and was like, "What the hell?" I was freaking out, and everyone died laughing. And ever since then, like I kind of poked my head, I was kind of watching them and watching. They're like, "No, don't watch that because you're too scared." Blah blah blah. And man, something in my brain clicked that day, and I just could not help myself.
Mm.
Just burned that etch into me that wanted to experience more of it. And dude, ever since that day, man, I couldn't stop, man. Had to get more of it. And been playing them ever since. Even like from there, whenever my parents actually got their own PlayStation, we had Resident Evil 2 at the house, they wouldn't let me play that game. They had it hid in the room. So me being a sneaky little shit that I am, would sneak in the room, get the game, play it, and I'd play it or whatever, and I couldn't save it because if I saved it, they would know I played it. So I'd have to start over each time. Dude, it was crazy. It wasn't until I think they busted me that they actually, all right, fine, you can play or whatever. Like, just don't be freaking out. And I was like,
Mhm.
it is what it is. But yeah, that's kind of the start for me.
That's actually pretty funny. Especially since I mean, like, how long did it take them to bust you exactly?
I want to say that the farthest I ever got into it and like how long it took, like, I probably had 5 sessions where I was like, because whenever I start playing, like, I turned it on, I'm like terrified by myself. Like I'm scared that they're gonna walk in the door. Like my dad, stepdad's gonna come from the work. My mom
Mhm.
may show up randomly. I don't know how much time I got, so the anxiety of that. And then when I would play it, I'd start off. Whenever the first game, I probably died like I don't know 10 times because I was still trying to figure the controls out.
Yeah.
And I was playing like games that those tank controls were really not a thing or whatever. And so I died a bunch of time. But eventually, that kind of I kind of got through it, and then I would get a little bit farther, and the not being able to save it made the fear even worse because every door I went through, I had to make sure I was packing my pistols. I had to be ready, you know.
Yeah.
So I developed this thing where like I'm like, okay, well, if I'm gonna go through this door, is it gonna be a boss? Like what's am I gonna get locked in there? What am I gonna do? So I'd bring all my guns and everything. I run through the door, All right, I'm good. Run through another door, try to clear it, and then backtrack all the way to save box, dump everything off that I didn't need, and then go back and try to loot the rooms individually, which would take like forever. So I'd only got through like 3 or 4 rooms in like an hour or two. And I think after like the fifth time that roughly playing, my mom whatever caught me, and then she was like, "All right, yeah, you can play, just don't be too scared and all that stuff like that." And I got to actually make my own save,
Mhm.
and no, it was cool. It was cool. It was super exciting.
Yeah, man. That's funny that you mentioned kinda going around killing everything, 'cause that's how I used to be also, like, going around, making sure that all enemies were clear because it kinda makes you feel safer having to go and backtrack and whatnot. What one thing I kinda
Yeah.
started to do later on, though, especially as I got older, and whatnot, kinda figured, where enemy placement was, things like that. And I still use this tactic today to where I kinda let the world be my item box if I know where certain items are. So, like, if I know I'm gonna need a healing item, if I need to save space and I know where an herb is and I know that room is nearby, I usually leave that space open because sometimes it's quicker just to go to that room rather than all the way back to your item box. It took me a while, because those old games especially, you have to kinda play them repeatedly because you die a lot. Y
Oh,
you
that's
know?
slick. That's slick. Yeah. See, I'm bad about being like the collector because I'd run there, grab everything, take it back to the box. So when I
Mhm,
would, so whenever I tried initially playing like one of the original games, and I was doing like I was gonna do a little playthrough of how I would naturally play, and I realized that it was probably to a viewer kind of boring because I'd run in there, grab all I can, and bring it back, do like a pack rat. I was just like doing, and
yeah,
that honestly it never bothered me because it was something that I guess I developed. I was young, so collecting everything and bringing it back, it would put me in situations sometimes where I had to go way too far and not have any, not have what I need,
mhm.
but just kind of my play style. So these like recordings I would do, I'm like 80% of it is like I got like an 8 hour playthrough on a 2.5 hour game because I'm bringing everything back to the box like a little chipmunk.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know what you mean, I kinda do the same, with, like, new games when they come out, I mean, after I get used to it, it's not that bad, but, like, whenever we get new installments or it's a game I haven't played before, I'm pretty bad for that too, because I guess you never really know, like, when you're gonna need it, you know?
Yeah, no, I feel like well, because one thing I was gonna ask you too is like how do you usually do your loadout? Because me, I'm usually bringing my handgun ammo, and a full shotgun. And like if I have a key item that I have to have with me, I'll have that. But that's usually my bare bones take. Like when I run through all these, just to get the shotgun, just in case I get pinned down, or
Mhm.
like say liquor catch because liquor's in RE2, a little more slick than the original. Everyone's you can literally walk up to it and then run past it real quick, hit the door, and most time
Yep.
like they're not even a problem until you get to like what the later part of the game when like the green ones or whatever come out.
Yeah, the evolved ones, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more or less the same. I mean, I always have my handgun ammo, and that's kind of something I always make a priority in all the games, is making sure I really, really have my handgun ammo, like, locked down, because that's usually the weapon you're gonna use the most. But yeah, I mean, I usually have at least a full shotgun if, of course, I'm at the point in the game where I have it. And I usually have a healing item if I can, just in case. Like I said, especially with those older ones to where there is no checkpoints. There's nothing. So if you die, you're going all the way back to where you started. And to me, that scares me more than anything most of the time. Really, So I always try to at least have something, but it also kind of depends on the character you're playing as. Because, for example, if you play as Chris in the original Resident Evil, man, if you have a handgun ammo, shotgun, healing item, that leaves you only like what, 2 spaces, you know?
Yeah.
So, it kinda depends on the game, but I usually try to have more or less the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one because like I did a couple years ago when I first started, I guess kind of dabbling more and like into the community of Resident because usually when I play I kind of kept to myself. I'd watch the videos of everybody. I didn't
Mhm.
really talk to anyone about it, but um one YouTuber that kind of changed that is like I think I mentioned before when talk was Dead by Donovan. I started watching
Yeah.
his stuff, and his stuff was a lot different than some of the other two YouTubers I watched, and he kind of pushed me a little bit towards making my own. I was like, well, people say they're going to do it, but are you going to do it, bro? And I was like, you
Mm.
know what? I just might. And 3 months later, I was like, I made a video. You want to look at it? But the whole point is that so I started redoing Resident Evil 1, and I realized that I forgot how hard that game was.
Yeah.
Because isn't Chris supposed to have more health? Like he takes
He's
more shots,
supposed
right?
to. Yeah, well, here's the thing, he's supposed to, but you get attacked more, so it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of redundant if you get attacked a lot more if you're not good at dodging, In that first game, man, those are some tight rooms. You've not really got a whole lot of room to really dodge around.
Yeah, yeah, no, especially when when I'm sitting there trying to learn how to relearn how to rope a dope 'em, where basically you run at 'em and run back real quick, and they try to get them to lunge at you, and
Mhm.
then sometimes they don't even take the bait. They're just like, "No, man, like I see what you're doing. Let me scoot you into the corner. We're gonna keep playing this game. I got you, bud." And so my first couple playthroughs of trying to kind of get back into it, start getting my platinum because I platinumed pretty much all the main games. I have like a couple left on Resident Evil 6.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do the multiplayer ones because like kill 1,000 of every enemy with every gun. I'm like, man, I ain't got time for that. But I'm
Same.
gonna get the story done. I'm gonna get the story done. I think I have the emblems. I think it is I have to do. But honestly, when you start making videos and everything else with life, I mean, finding time, man, finding time for all that.
Yeah, yeah, finding time is hard because I'm a big trophy whore, I try to get them all too, and I've platinumed, let's see, the 1, 2, 3, 4 remakes, 8, 7, the base game, the DLCs I'm working on because those DLCs are tough. Um,
They are.
5 and 6, I don't quite like those games as much, and they're usually easier with a person to play with. So it's kind of the same thing, like trying to find time because not everybody's available whenever you are. Um, and as far as like how you were mentioning doing like a lot of the multiplayer, killing 1,000, zombies or whatever. Yeah, that takes a lot of time, and like I just don't really do grindy type of trophies for that reason because it's just, at that point it doesn't get fun anymore. It becomes more of a task.
Yeah. Now I feel that because and the thing is, in a lot of those like multiplayer ones, you don't need them for the platinum, and
Mhm.
and I'm here for more for the story. I want the story. I want the story achievements, and like I want to play with within reason. Some of them are immersed, like Resident Evil 7. I have that platinum, and the 21 plus. I spent hours trying to get that right hand, and it was funny because
Yeah.
I'd get so close and it would beat the shoe off me. It would wipe me out, and then I think the right before I platinum or after I got that last one or whatever, dude, I just beat the shoe off it. Like I just even though he was like taking my cards and switching my hand and everything that they were doing to stop me, I was able to get around it. I
Yeah.
even like because I put the video up on my channel, whatever, me beating that last dude. When I got it, I was like, I'm probably never gonna play this again. This is like I like card games, but oh my god, this is too much.
7 on the hardest difficulty was really tough. I had to actually play the game to unlock the saw, the circular saw, and then I had to restart
Yeah.
because that Marguerite boss was just getting me, man. 7's a hard game, but like to me, the hardest trophy I think I've ever gotten with Resident Evil was probably the Inferno mode last battle with Nemesis because that fight it gets to the point to where it's not even fair. I mean, you have one tiny little bitty hiccup, you're done for. You're you're locked in. You're not going to be able to get up. I mean, that boss was tough. I hated that boss so much. Like, I don't really get game rage that often, but I about threw my controller through the TV screen because it was just so hard. You know.
Dude, it was beating my ass. I actually it because I got the coins. I think I saved up just for like a few of the things or whatever, and I actually bought the little pass to give me the rest of the items I needed,
Hmm.
right? Thinking that would help me. And dude, it didn't make a difference. And it wasn't until I don't know what I was doing, but I think I was pushing in one of the things, and he hit me and he knocked me into the corner on the right. And I
Mhm.
realized he couldn't touch me when I was in that corner.
Oh.
Yeah, like it's on the right side. There's a little spot on the right side that he hit me in there, or like I just somehow found my way over there. And I realized that when he was smacking down, I was like, dude, he's not touching me. And like it seemed like sometimes when I would aim, he'd hit me, but dude, if I just kind of sit there and let him do his thing, it would give me an opening to like rocket launchers, little pustules. And dude, I ain't gonna lie, I cheesed it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the win where I can get it. Like this happened, it's fate. I'm gonna take what I can
Hey, if it
get.
works, it works. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before. I may have to actually kinda play it again just to see.
Yeah, it's somewhere on the right side. There's like a little spot or whatever that you just kind of sit, dude, and then
Mm.
it worked out for me. And that's how I was able to get that one because like it was like I think I would get maybe one good run where I'd dive. Oh, I got this, and then dude, as soon as he do it again, I would just fat finger it or whatever, and he would just smash me. And I'm like, dude, that's like I'm not gonna get this. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get I'm too old for this. My skills are much less.
So, like, what was, some of the most nostalgic, memories you have of the series, or even the most nostalgic?
Man, you know what's kind of God, when I think about it, for a lot of me, it's the way the game made me feel. Because I like, because a lot of horror movies I watched as a kid, they had a lot of like fantastical aspects. You watch like something goofy as Leprechaun,
Mhm.
Child's Play, what is it? Freddy Krueger, and I love a lot of that stuff. But there was something about Resident Evil where it was close enough to reality for me as a kid that you're walking into an actual city. Like I looked around to the city and I'm like, dude, this reminds me of kind of like parts of my hometown and stuff. The way these
Same.
cops act, the way these because even though these people are saying cheesy ass things, like dude, I grew up around cheesy people. Like these were genuine,
Mhm.
like some of the jokes from like Resident Evil One was like these like dad jokes like I've heard before. Like I can't
Yeah.
remember one of the one Chris said was something I actually heard one of my like buddies' dad say. So I was like, dude, is this real life right now? Like, dude, did they get like what? So it was so close to reality to me as a kid, and then seeing as like the dogs and then things escalated, especially with Birkin. So like a lot of I guess my nostalgia was that was one of the first things that I really like got to experience in the game where like a game where I'm playing myself, I'm controlling this movie, and I'm fully immersed in everything that's going on, from like your what is it, altruistic Marvin Branagh being like, like get out of here, things are bad, blah, blah, you got this, I'm gonna come
Mhm.
back and save you, bro. I'm like, dude, that's totally me. And was it even like Sherry or whatever? She's like running away the whole time, and I'm like, dude, if I was a kid in that situation, I'm gonna go run and hide. I ain't playing with y'all. Like this is like I
Mhm.
don't know any of y'all a bunch of strangers. And just growing up, man, that place was able to pull me out of some of like the bad times of my life.
Mhm.
And and I would go into that world, and as a kid, it would immerse me and terrify me. But as I got a little bit older, I just love killing zombies. I love puzzles, and I would play. You can like ask my younger brother. Dude, I play these games 1,000 times over, and it
Mhm.
would just always suck me back in. Whether it was doing better or trying something a little different than last time, and just and the monsters were even close enough to what like as someone I didn't really have an imagination for that stuff. Like as I couldn't create it with myself, but seeing what Capcom did with Resident Evil, I was like seeing the big eye from the shoulder. I was like, dude, is that a thing? Is that
Mhm.
like is there something out in nature that's kind of like that? I know big claws are a thing, but yeah, and what was it like? Chief Irons when he splits open, like was it down the side or
Yeah, like,
whatever,
have his
and the G
body.
thing came
Yeah.
out. Yeah. Oh, bro. As a kid, I was all like, "Thank God my mom doesn't know that's a thing." You know, like stepdad's at work. He'd probably be like, "Yo, that's a bad part. Probably don't want to see that." But I was just like, "All right, man. She ain't paying attention in the kitchen. Let me come on, man. Let's get through this real quick."
Yeah.
But dude, that's a lot of my nostalgia, man. What about you?
Well, with me, it's pretty interesting because I grew up around horror movies literally almost since I can remember being conscious. Like, again, I was born in 1998, so like I remember going to watch Freddy versus Jason in the theaters, like with my mom and dad. Like that kind of stuff I loved. There was only one scary movie that scared me as a kid, and that was The Ring. until I watched Scary Movie 3. Then I thought it was hilarious. But that's the only thing that scared me. Like, literally, I wasn't scared of any games, any movies, anything. I actually liked it. Maybe that's the reason why I'm screwed up today. I don't know. But,
No, dude.
like, I see what it was is that I, got introduced to it by my actual birth father, and that's really the only memory I have with my, again, my actual birth father, and I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I do remember playing as Leon some, and I loved it. Um, but then, whenever, again, my parents, the ones who raised me, whenever they split up, my dad went to go live with his mother for a while until he saved up money to go get a house. Um, so his sister visited a lot. So, my who I consider my cousin was obviously there. And he was about, I think he's 2 years older than me. So, he brought over his game system a lot, like his GameCube, stuff like that. And, I was familiar with the Resident Evil movies. I actually specifically remember whenever the second movie came out, and I loved that movie so much. The first one I liked too, but the second one I liked it because of Nemesis, and it had zombies in it, and as a little kid, you like seeing
Yeah.
zombies get shot. But I liked Nemesis. I didn't really care much for Alice even as a kid. Um, but whenever we started to play the games and I got to see Nemesis and the games and stuff like that, it was just like the perfect timing to where I fell in love with Nemesis and the game too. But what really, really solidified it for me was Resident Evil 4. That's the game I really played. I mean, God, back to back. And one of my childhood best friends, we grew up playing that game. I mean, almost until we were, teenagers really. And we started to get a job and actually grew up. Um, but like what I loved so much about, being down there at my grandma's house, even after my dad moved out, I still went down there and saw her every single weekend. I'm from Tennessee and, I live on a mountain, but she lived at the very bottom of it and in a quiet area. So, being inside the house, listening to the wind howl, in a very dark area
Yeah.
and outside whenever you just hear and see trees shaking. That environment really, really roped me into the immersive environment of Resident Evil. Like whenever my cousin and I would play it, it really, really felt environmental, whenever you were playing it. And
Yeah.
in the fall time, whenever there were leaves everywhere, it looked a lot like Resident
Yeah.
Evil 4, you know. So
Dude, I
so,
feel that.
the environment around me actually contributed a lot to the video games and really made me feel that connection, you know. They were my parents separated, it's something that really distracted me, something that I really liked. And, I mean, that's the reason why I have tattoos specifically of Nemesis and Resident Evil 4, because, those games really did change my life. And, my wife and I, we bonded a lot over Resident Evil. And, she's played them all. Um, but the Resident Evil 4 remake, she was fighting me for the controller. So that really, really, is another big reason as to how Resident Evil 4 contributed to my life even still as an adult, you know?
Yeah, no, I feel that because you're in Tennessee. I'm over here in North Carolina, so um, far enough, but not super far, dude. Like right now, my
Mhm.
yard, when I go out there, especially when it starts getting like closer to like fall and all that, look around, and that's exactly what I thought. I was like, dude, this is kind of gives me that old, where's the Granada going to pop out? That
Yeah.
mierda, like,
Yep.
and yeah, no, I feel that. Talking about the movies, man. I got a funny story because me being a little bit older, um my mom took me and my brother, we went to the movie or whatever, and man, I can't. What was it? I was like close to like 15, 16, something like that. My
Mhm.
brother was too young, so we get in line and we're hanging out, and I'm like, I'm like, bro, this is gonna be awesome. He's stoked, because we play Res. He watched me play Resin for years. He hold that fake controller and have my back,
Yep.
and we play and all those good little memories of us bonding, doing that stuff, and like, dude, he'd always make fun of me to today about like that story of me like running behind the couch So like he's like, "Oh, remember that zombie?" Anytime you see that zombie look, like, "Oh, remember that?" You sissy, and I'm like, "Bro, shut up, man. We're like adults now. Don't tell people this." But anyway, we're in line to the theater, right? And we get up there, and I'm stoked. I put the money down. You know, I'm all dramatic. I'm like two for Resident Evil. I'm ready. And she looks at me. She goes, How old is he?" I was like, 15. And she goes, "No, he's not. He's like 10. He's like 10 years old." He's like, you can't take him to watch that movie. Like, you got to pick something
Oh.
else." And bro's like, "What are we gonna do? I don't want." I was like, okay, okay, two for Ice Age." And bro, he's like, "I don't want to watch." Like, shut up. Let me cook. Let me do my thing. And she gives us the tickets for Ice Age, and we're walking in, and the guy he clicks and goes, "All right, theater went over here, dude." We scooted right to the right. We went in there, found two seats, set them in. This place was like packed. So we just set the two, and we prayed that nobody would walk up. Like, "What are you doing in here?" And dude, we got to watch that movie, and my brother was actually much tougher than I am to watch because like I would get so immersed into it, like so just into it that I'd be easily set up for fear. And I can't remember if it's the one where like Rain pops her head down while the or someone pops her head down while she's like messing with the tracks or whatever she's messing with anybody. But one of those little jump scares scared me so bad. I jumped up in the seat and it was dead quiet. And I jumped up and the whole theater laughed. And my brother's looking at me, he's laughing, everybody's looking at, and I think they kind of knew, like they're like, "Who are these kids with?"
Yeah.
Because like these people on either side is like, dude, we're not with these kids, and that was a great memory I got to share with my brother, dude. The movie terrified me at that time because that was the first time that I actually got to see a horror movie big
Mhm.
screen because I watched scary movies at home, with small TV, hanging out with my family. But this was like, I'm breaking the rules. I got these Ice
Yeah.
Age tickets, and now we're watching Resident Evil 1. And I loved it. Like, because that was it wasn't as true, it's not as true to the series I'd like it to be. But you
Yeah.
know what? As a starting point, it was pretty. I had fun. I got a good memory attached to it.
Mhm.
I had a lot of fun with it, and like Resident Evil 2, like I like that too. But then after that, it's kind of like, what is this? What are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. And like that's kind of the same way with me. Like even though that the first movie isn't necessarily the greatest Resident Evil movie, I think I think it's a good movie in its own. It's not perfect, but I think it's a good movie. I think that if they went the right direction, it could have kind of been a spin-off of a game story. Of course, they undermined all that in the second film. But, what I loved about the second film is, like whenever you see the Raccoon City fight between all of the Stars members and whatnot, which of course in that movie, Stars is like a whole freaking military. But whenever you see the Stars, the military, or whatever, and of course the UBCS going up against the zombies in like dark alleys or whatnot, I loved it because, I live in a very, very small town. Like I said, I live on a mountain, so,
Yeah,
it's very small. And with that said, the population is very small. I think we have maybe a little over 1,000, if that.
oh
So
wow.
like at nighttime, it's pretty much vacant. I mean, you could probably go take a nap in the road and be fine because it's just there's nobody there. So I always thought it was so cool, like at the time, of course, I couldn't drive. Obviously, I was a kid. But, like driving down the road with like my mom or my dad or whatever late at night, it was so cool because it reminded me so much of that movie because, it's just an empty street. There's just nobody there. And there's some alleyways, not much, but some. So it kind of reminded me of like, man, and even still as an adult, I think like, man, it would be so cool to see like a zombie film here because it's a very claustrophobic and tight environment you know? So
Yeah.
whenever it's nighttime, if you see any people walking or whatever, it's weird. So imagining seeing like zombies come down an alleyway and just pour through. I love that as a kid. Um, and Resident Evil 1, the remake specifically, like I was mentioning all the trees rattling outside at my grandma's house and whatnot. It really reminded me of the Spencer Mansion, especially whenever it's like raining or storming, and seeing lightning outside because, living
Yeah.
out there kind of by herself. I mean, there was some family living around her too, but still being down there out in the country and kind of experiencing the same environment that they did, being out by themselves in the middle of the woods. Um, it was pretty cool. Like I kind of got the flavor of the Spencer Mansion, kind of got the flavor of Resident Evil 4, like how I said, whenever it's fall. And just living in a small town kind of reminded me of some parts of Raccoon City. I mean, well, besides the tall buildings, I don't have tall buildings here, because they're
No, I
just so
feel that.
small. Yeah. And
Yeah.
funny enough, my grandma, which I totally forgot about it until about 4 or 5 years ago. Of course, she passed away 2 years ago, but about 4 or 5 years ago, we were at, I think, a Halloween party with and my wife was there. Um, and I remember we were talking about somehow Resident Evil got brought up, and I totally forgot about this until she mentioned it. But which I have ADHD, so it was like that as a kid too. Whenever I had a lot more energy, I would not shut the hell up about Resident Evil to the point where my grandma one weekend was like, "Hey, I have a bet for you. If you don't talk about Resident Evil, I'll give you $10." And I forgot about it. So, like, whenever she said that, I was like, "Oh my god, I am so sorry." I was like, "And I had you watch those trash movies." And I even gave her a hug. I'm like,
Dude, that's
"I'm
so
so
funny.
sorry. Like, you had to literally bribe me to just shut up about those shit movies and video games you didn't even care about."
Dude, that's hilarious. Oh man, I'm bad about brain. Like somebody comes over, like, you want to see my nerd collection? And they like, check.
Yeah.
You want to see my room, man? I call this is how you fix the bad childhood. You get all the stuff all around you. And
Yeah.
yeah, they got that. It's funny because my small town, man, it's because it's at the bottom of a mountain, but it's still pretty hilly. And some of these
Mhm.
alleyways and all that, I just look around. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be the spot. Like that'd be the spot where they'd be creeping. Now you don't want to go down there. They're gonna eat you. They're gonna eat you.
Yep.
And and then even my small town that I grew up in, it kind of had the little buildings and shopping centers and things like that. And I would always look around and be like, dude, this is perfect for a zombie horde. Like this would be great. And
Yeah.
talking about part two, what was it? Because you remember, I think it's the Resident Evil 3 cutscene or whatever, where it shows like the I guess what the SWAT team or the cops' final stand. Didn't they
Mhm.
didn't they do that scene in the movie a little bit? I didn't we didn't get full on, but we got a little bit of it.
They actually replicated a lot of scenes from the Resident Evil 3 intro, like specifically at the like whenever you see a lot of them get like just mauled down, and you see that shot of like a SWAT helmet, you see like the reflection of a zombie.
Yeah.
They showed that.
Yeah.
They showed all of the SWAT team or whatever. I think it was the military rappelling from the helicopter. I mean,
Mhm.
they showed a lot of that, and also somebody throwing a grenade. I mean, they added in a little bit more of it, but throwing the grenade. Um, I feel like they kind of remixed the Resident Evil 2 scene with the helicopter. Of
Yeah.
course, in the movie, it was a lady who like killed herself. After Carlos like ridiculously jumped from a helicopter. But they kind of had the similar like, okay, there's a helicopter above the building, but somebody dies because they got bitten by zombies. So it
Yeah.
was a similar idea, but I did appreciate how in that movie, despite it being an Alice movie, they at least did have some almost one-to-one recreations of the video game. Um, and Nemesis, even though ironically his name used to be Matt, you know, that's one thing I always liked as a kid. I'm like, hey, that's my name.
Yeah.
Um, but
I'm Nemesis.
yeah, but despite that, um, I did like how they did Nemesis, and as a kid, funny enough, so at my old, at my grandma's old house, and I wish I had this drawing after she passed away. Um, I actually drew like on a piece of paper. I wrote stars on there, and I like trace it around with blue, and I taped it to
Yeah.
a door that I think was my dad's old bedroom as a kid. And in that bedroom, she had like a big chest that looked a lot like an item box. So like,
That's
me and my
cool.
cousin, we would play outside a lot, and pretend that was like our safe room, you know. Um and again, playing outside as a kid, especially at nighttime, was pretty cool. Right after you get done watching a scary movie or playing a scary game, then
Yeah,
having the imagination to go out and pretend to be like this or whatever. You know.
yeah. And then your parents would be like, "Why do you keep putting the house plants in the trunk? Stop doing it!" It's like this is how I survive. Oh
Yeah.
man! So before we get off the movies, how'd you feel about Nemesis at the end of it having a heart of gold?
Yeah, that I didn't even as a kid, I was like, "That's kinda weird." I was like, "That's just weird," but it wasn't honestly, even before that, well, a little bit before that, seeing him, like, use, like, a freaking blade, it was like a sword or whatever,
Yeah.
it was so dumb. I mean, you see this gigantic brute then be able to, like, kinda turn into a slow ninja or something, it's ridiculous, it was so
Oh,
dumb.
yeah, it was silly as hell, but I ain't gonna lie, the first time I saw it, I was like, "Yeah, Nimbus is about to mess up all the bad guys, let's go!" Dude, I ain't gonna lie, I was stoked for it, man. Like now I look at him like, that's not Nemesis. Nemesis is a killing machine.
Yep.
Nemesis kills everything. And but at that time, watching it as a kid, man, I ain't gonna lie, dude, I dug it. I thought it was pretty neat seeing some of these like different little takes, of it. In retrospect, I went like it. It's kind of like they take an inch, and then by the time we're way over here, it's like so
Mhm.
ridiculous. I'm like, because I remember seeing something like those last movies, and I was like, "What is this shit?" Like they've literally reset the world every movie after this. Well, I think it was like Extinction, and then after
Mhm.
that, they were just tracking back everything they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was almost like he was like, I'm going to do the most ridiculous thing. I'm just going to change the rules. And none of this stuff's going to be consistent. These movies are going to sell like hotcakes, and nobody's going to care.
Yep.
Nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I care. I
And
care.
yeah, like, and I remember, of course, this is before, the internet was a big thing, but, this is around the time that people had, computers and laptops, so this was around 2004-ish, 2005-ish, roughly. I didn't have any Wi-Fi, but, because again, it obviously wasn't as accessible back then as it is now, but, um I do remember that my cousin's, big brother was talking about, like, how they're making the 3rd film, and that the Tyrant was supposed to be in there, and I actually remember one day we were playing outside, and he mentioned that. We were like, "Oh my god, they're gonna have the Tyrant in that movie." Um,
Yeah.
but even as a kid, when that 3rd movie came out, I just didn't like it. And that's coming from a dumb little boy who's, wanting to see action, and in that movie, I just didn't like it. I hated that movie, and it's kinda funny because now as an adult, in a weird way, I love those movies because of how bad they are. Like, I'm the kind of person where I love stupid movies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's a love-hate thing. Like, for example, like, I actually love Twilight because of just how stupid they are. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and watch it
Yeah.
over and over again, but I love stupid movies because I like to make fun of them, and to me, they turn into comedy movies, you know? So, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm weird. Like, I like bad movies because to me they turn into comedies. So, like, my wife and I, we watched all of the Resident Evil movies, and I hadn't watched the last couple ones. And Jesus Christ, they are freaking hilarious. They are so funny. Like, even the second one's freaking hilarious. Like, whenever she drives through a window in a motorcycle and somehow just defies gravity. Like, that's the kind of movie I want to sit back and have a beer with, or or drink to. Um, After you get done watching it, you kinda need to, have a drink, I feel like, because of just
Yeah.
how crap they
Yeah.
are.
Because it's like a church, and I mean, I don't. I've been
Mhm.
in front of many churches. That there is never a ramp. There is never a ramp that's going to send you that high. What is like the second story?
Yeah.
Through the window. To hit. To hit the what is it? The
It
what
was a
didn't it hit like
liquor.
a actually took yeah, it took out a liquor. Like it was. I
Yeah.
was like, what? Like what? Like this is starting to get kind of like I like that time. I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. But even then, I was kind of like, why is she dressed like that? Like
Yeah.
she like what's going on here? And yeah, dude, it was. it was super goofy because like even like Resident Evil 3, it starts off where they, she almost gets beat by like this, I don't know, homeless band of like cannibals. And then
Yeah,
she shows up a little bit later and like literally psychics her way through like hundreds of crows.
yeah.
Like, how does this make any like how are we getting there?
The
None of like why did she didn't have to, all that karate she did meant nothing. She could have just stood there and just threw the dog at him
yeah, yeah.
or
They
floated her way up and just we're gonna change places.
And the last movie to me wasn't honestly to me the last movie was just god awful because it wasn't even to the point where it was bad, it was funny. That movie was just bad. Like there was no enjoyment out of that last movie. Like to me, if a movie's gonna be bad, I at least like to make fun of it. Like again, Twilight. Those movies are god awful. They suck. And I don't want to go off on a tangent with Twilight here out of a Resident Evil video, but those movies
Yeah.
are just so bad that they're hilarious to watch. But that last Resident Evil movie wasn't even funny, in an entertaining way. It was just god awful. It was just God, I hated that movie. Um,
Is that the one where they went back to Raccoon City? There was like the
yep.
preacher guy in the weird military vehicle, and yeah, that one I like because there's always aspects in these films that I like. Even like I said, the prison one. Whenever the God, what is it? The genie
Yeah, the big
butcher
like
guy. What's he called?
executioner. Yeah.
Yeah, that like when he showed up and then she's using quarters as her ammo and all that. I'm like, oh man, that's kind of cool, Like I like little aspects of that. But then you see like the hunt. Was it the liquor in one of the later ones where like the liquor's kidnapping kids and has eggs? Like,
Yeah, puts in
what
like a
what
big
is this?
sack.
Like, yeah, like I have no idea. Like, what does any of this means? Like they already have the monsters. You just got to copy that. Just copy, paste, update the lyrics, the words just a
Mhm.
little bit. Give us a couple little bit more dialogue lines because I see people online like, and out of every post I've ever seen on any kind of social media, they're like, they're messing up the movies, and someone's like, "Oh, like they should just copy the games." And they're like, well, then we all know what's going on, and that'd be dumb, and that wouldn't sell. I'm like, bro, I ain't gonna lie. Me being an old school Resident Evil fan, I mean, look, they remade the games. They only changed a little bit.
Mhm.
They got a little bit better dialogue, and those games sold like hotcakes. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if you gave us a Resident Evil 1 where all you did was, I mean, even some of the puzzles, you can even have some of the puzzles already done where like they walked up and they're like, dang, there's a key already in this door. Just
Yeah.
to move it along a little bit faster. And dude, it put butts in seats. They would show up.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. Like
Well,
you can take
and
like the Bravo team. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, no, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were done. Continue. Continue.
Oh, like I said, one little thing I always wanted, like this is just like a me thing, but like having the Bravo team, doing their lights, looking around, and then they kind of like shine the light, and it shows like maybe like Billy Cohen standing on the van sideways, and it looks like he's shooting somebody or whatever, and then running off into the woods. And then
Mhm.
like shortly after that, like they're like, "What's that?" And then it breaks down. And it's like, "Oh, we got a little Easter egg for Resident Evil Zero," and
Yeah.
then we're moving into Resident One. Like something like that. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Oh
In a
yeah. Oh
heartbeat.
yeah, and you
I
could
just
easily have like a mini cinematic universe there, you know. I mean, that's something that The Keeper's Diary that Residents of Evil did recently, I liked it because not only was it a great interpretation of everything, but there were some really interesting rewrites. Well, not really rewrites, but interpretations, like how they were talking about the Keeper's friend showing up wearing a hunk outfit, for example, a
yeah.
UDCS uniform. And I liked it because I feel like that if we had even a TV series that could kind of connect and form a whole story, I think even that would be great, but I just don't know if we're ever gonna get it, you know? I mean,
Oh,
um, but, it sucked too because, seeing in the movies and seeing your favorite characters massacred and just completely different sucked, I mean, which, speaking
yeah.
of, I mean, what's your favorite character in all the games?
Oh man. Um. Oh man. Depends on what. Or do I want to go like like the number one, or want to kind of go off cast? I gotta say, as a kid, my favorite one honestly was Jill Valentine one
Mhm,
because I ain't gonna lie, she was hot. She's super cool, and
mhm.
I ain't gonna lie, be able to blow zombies' heads off with a shotgun from like Resident Evil like 3, and then
Mhm.
even the remake was like awesome, awesome. But
Yeah.
I gotta say is like, but a side character that I think was done really good is they did the remake too of Marvin Branagh.
Oh,
Like, I
yeah.
ain't gonna lie, like, dude, like he just the impact of this the few scenes you get with that dude sold it 100%. When he's just
Mhm.
laying there kind of sleep and then he wakes up, he's all kind of feral for a second, then he kind of comes back. Like,
Yeah.
dude, that little detail, I was like, dude, I was in it. Dude, I was like this in like was it immersed beyond belief, with
Mhm.
just that little bit of and like Resident Evil is like really good at that, because they have their goofy stuff.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
running through the swamp killing a bunch of mutated G baby things, but then you come back and then like, he's like dying asleep, wakes up and he gives you some emotional like pep talk, like basically it's like, dude, if you don't go do what you need to do, I'm gonna shoot you. Like just
Mhm.
he's not gonna do it, but he's gonna scare you enough to get that rookie back on the path
Yeah.
because he knows his time's up. He ain't gonna make it. He's on his way out, and he knows
Yeah.
that if he wanted to, he could get that kid killed trying to save him.
Yeah.
And dude, that hit pretty hard, man. I was like, dude, this is expert level, expert level. But what about you?
Well, yeah, and to further touch on that, I mean, if they were doing Outbreak remake, they could really implement him more into the game. I mean, even more so than they did in File 2, and I'd be all for it. But to touch on my favorite character, mine would probably be Leon. Like most people's are. That's at this point kind of a
Yeah,
generic answer. But as a kid, of course, I was really biased because of Resident Evil 4. Um, but even in Resident Evil 2, I really liked it. And if you've ever read the S.D. Perry novels, they do a really great job of really showing how Leon thinks. Even because in the original game, let's be honest, it's kind of hard to go off a character because it wasn't written the best for characterization. But even from what you got in that game, um, the little bit of character development, if you will, I really liked his selfless personality. But he was also vulnerable. But at the same
yeah.
time, it's always been a tie for me between him and Jill. I had to pick Leon, but I always liked Jill because you know, Resident Evil 1, how scared you see her, but
Hmm.
in Resident Evil 3, how you see her just trying to get out of town. And what's crazy is, even after a nemesis shoots down the helicopter, at that point, if I'm not gonna lie to you, at that point, I would just kill myself because I'd be like, all right, that was my ride. I'm done. Like, I only have a little bit left before the town blows up. There's a dude that looks like a piece of pizza chasing me. Dude, I'm done. I give up. But she still somehow kept going, and well, there you go, she's out. But she was very, very determined, very strong, and it's pretty crazy if you look up her history because if I remember correctly, she was in a division that was even way up above a Navy SEAL, you know, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's something that if we ever get a Resident Evil 1 remake, I really hope that they let Jill and other Stars members really kind of showcase their skills. I mean, you obviously can't have her going around just kicking complete ass because that's not what Resident Evil 1 is. It's a slower paced game. They're scared even.
Yeah.
But it would be cool to actually get to see her use her lockpicking skills in a new remake. Maybe you could even have a little I don't know if you've ever played the Splinter Cell video games, but in those games you actually have to, pick a lock. So I think it would be cool if we actually got to um use skills as a stars member, you know. But kind of going off a tangent there, but my favorite side character, it's kind of hard because there's so many, and a lot of them die. Like
Yeah.
Luis dies. I mean, Steve dies. Piers dies.
Yeah.
And they're usually there and they're gone. So the side character is kind of hard for me to pick, really. I mean, if I had to pick, it would probably be Carlos. Simply because we don't, ever really get much of him. I mean, Billy's a good one, But Billy, I think we get to see his backstory more. We get to know a little bit more about his personal life. Whereas with
Yeah.
Carlos, other than kind of looking things up on the internet or whatever, or in books or whatever, we don't really get a whole lot of him. We get to see how he is in Resident Evil 3 and the remake too. But we don't ever
Yeah.
really get to see who he actually is. So that's a character I've always wanted to see again. Just because I feel like out of any of the side characters, we don't really get his backstory. I mean, we get Steve's backstory. We even get Sheva's backstory. But we don't ever really get anything for Carlos.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point because I think the remake, actually, dude, he was because the remake, like I liked the game, it was a fun game, but I think the cinematics or whatever, it was like its strongest point,
Yeah.
and like to me overall, like I did like it, but Carlos like being developed as a character was dude
Oh, I
super
loved him
cool,
in that
man,
game.
doing the job.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I ain't gonna lie, I kinda imagine that, once everything happened, man, he was all like, "Hey, Jill, man, I'm going back to, like, where I'm from, like, this is crazy,
Hmm.
like, I gotta get out of it because like, I was in this big terrorist thing with this company, so I'm gonna hit back where I'm from. If you wanna come hang out, you're more than welcome to, but I'm gonna go I'm going home, man, it's too much, my
Hmm.
contract's up, I'm done here, y'all take care. Y'all take care." And
Yeah.
that's what I kind of imagine, because I mean, what else could he have done? He never joined the BSAA or anything like that, so he's probably hanging out the house. It'd be real crazy if in the new Resident Evil 8 game or whatever, we end up Carlos ends up being the new merchant, like old Carlos selling his shit.
Honestly, I would actually, in a weird way, be okay with that.
Yeah, like because at this point, like bring them back and just use them, just use them. I don't care where they show up.
Hmm.
Because like Sheva, man, like she was a cool character. I like
Hmm.
I ain't gonna lie, man. Just hot chick doing hot chick things. And I'd like to see her come back with the BSAA, being part of that team. Because now that, like, what is it? I think with the newest Resident Evil games,
Hmm.
it's Chris basically taking on, what is it, BSAA, and then there's
Yeah.
like the Blue Umbrella thing that's kind of loosely connected. I mean, if they do anything with that, maybe he pulls together the team of people, from these old games. Like, Jill's like, hey, I know a guy. He's like in,
Hmm.
South America where he's at now, And I'm like, oh well, I know some we got some people, in Africa we could pull too. And
Yeah.
then like the game gives us like maybe some kind of, super team that, Death Island did okay with, but man, that's goofy. It's kind of
Yeah.
goofy.
Yeah, and I feel like that if and I I'm planning on kind of making a video about it, but it's kind of hard to really put it into words. Um, I guess in short, I feel like that the best way to kill off a character like Chris, for example, um, is that they need to build up a villain first. That was the thing I hated the most about Death Island because the villain was just a throwaway villain. And that to me that's the biggest problem with Resident Evil is that almost every single villain is there and they're gone. They're not intimidating to me because I know they're going to die by the end of the game. It happens in every single game besides Wesker. Of course, he's allegedly gone now. But if they ever, I feel like it'd be crazy if they brought back Wesker. It turns out he actually slipped into the BSAA, to really screw with Chris and everybody too. Kind of do a personal, like F you, basically. But also, use that as a way to kind of get back into bioterrorism. If they ever did that, I feel like that would need to be at least a couple games built upon, and then maybe bring back like how you were saying, those two characters, but you could also even bring back the original team, Barry, Rebecca, Jill, Chris. And I think it'd be a pretty cool last hurrah to kind of go full circle and have all of them back, but this time going after Wesker and, maybe actually kill Chris this time or something. Let it actually have an impact. Because to me, that's the biggest problem with Resident Evil is that there's not really a whole lot of weight, I feel, whenever characters
Yeah.
die because you meet them and they're gone, and villains are the same way. To me, it like whenever Resident Evil 9 comes out, I already know for a fact that villain's gonna die. Um, I would be surprised if they live because it doesn't happen unless you're Wesker, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but speaking of games, what's your favorite game out of the entire series if you had to pick?
If I had to pick one and I had to run down one out of, you know what? I guess it depends on what I base it on. Like out of pure enjoyment,
Hmm.
dude, it'd be Resident Evil Outbreak.
Yeah.
When it comes to like long term game playing, I played Resident. I like maxed out everything, unlocked all the characters, all that stuff. Out of like pure gameplay wise, I had a team of people. We would get in there, we play very hard, and we had like things
Hmm.
memorized to the point, and we would just sit there and hang out and just chat in a little thing, and
Oh
then
yeah.
run the maps. And we would even help newbies out. We'd bring them with you. I'd be like, "Hey, follow Mark. Just stay with Mark. You don't have to do anything
Hmm.
else. Just hang out with that guy. You're gonna see David King. 'Cause I'd play David King. That was like my dude. I had
Oh
the
yeah.
knife combo down to a science. I even had it where I could like almost stun lock the zombies. Or
Hmm.
to the certain point, so I could basically keep them off and line them up and throw the wrench and hit three, two, and three at the same time. But I would say like gameplay wise, maybe that one. Story wise, like that had the most impact on me. God, man, I ain't gonna lie. I'd be, I'd probably have to be Resident Evil 2, and give me the
Hmm.
original or the remake. They're both great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, those games. It's interesting because Resident Evil 2 kind of falls in line where a lot of other games don't. Arguably, really, in another game that I could think of, honestly, to where it's a perfect sequel because it follows up from the first game, but it's also its own story. You don't really get that a whole lot. Usually each game is kind of their own thing. Which, of course, there is a continuing storyline, of course, but in that
Yeah.
game, it really does feel like a sequel, even though you don't necessarily see the same cast. The whole plot is around that cast. I mean, they're brought up numerous times. I mean, hell, the whole point of Claire being there is because of Chris. Um,
Hmm.
so I really, really like it because it really falls in the middle between an actual sequel, but yet its own thing at the same time.
Dude, well, that was one thing about it is that like the opening scene, whenever Claire and Chris first meet, I ain't gonna lie. The first thing I thought was, "Dang, man, they're throwing down in a Waffle House. This is awesome." That
Yeah.
was dude, that was my first. I was like, dude, this is crazy. This is like literally Waffle House. They're hanging out at Waffle House. And then like, after that, then the game opens up and you're in like the streets. The streets are on fire, and there's like, all these zombies in comparison to, what the couple zombies we got to experience before. I'm like, dang, this is crazy. If this is what I'm dealing with, having to like run to the police station because you're like, dude,
Mhm.
there's nothing safe over here. There's nothing safe here. Like at least with Resident Evil 1, it kind of starts as a slow burn. You have a
Yeah.
couple zombies, but you're just kind of hanging out. But this, like, we're in the shit, boys. This is
Mhm.
bad news. I got like a mag and a half, and dude, I'm in the middle of the streets. This is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, no, dude. Like, nah, it blew me away, man. That's why I'm like hoping like with these remakes, man, like we can maybe get like an outbreak again. Like you know
Uh,
what? Talking about things, how do you feel about open world Resident Evil? Because I see that all the time now.
mhm. Well, and that was actually something I was gonna bring up is, kind of where you wanna see the series go. Because me personally, as far as gameplay wise, I'm actually okay with open world, but it has to be done in a very interesting and imperfect way, which that's kind of what worries me because you'd have to really hit the nail on the head. Because to me, if you really think about open world games, of course, no game is obviously going to let you go to infinite places. There's obviously boundaries, of course, like Grand Theft Auto. You're never going to be able to just go explore the entire world. Obviously, it's an open world game because you can walk around freely, do whatever you want. There's no form of a level. The world is your level or your stage, essentially. But with games like Resident Evil 4, well, the remake specifically, I feel like that game, in a lot of ways, to me, felt open world because, now obviously there's some areas that you cannot revisit. I mean, once you go to the castle, you can't go back to the village. You just can't. But in the
Yeah.
castle, what really surprised me is that the further you progress, you can almost backtrack that entire castle. You can go on top of the castle, you can go inside, go everywhere else you've been before. I mean, you can literally backtrack almost everywhere. And even in the village, if you're in the village, you can backtrack almost everywhere in that village. Um, the island is whenever it gets a little bit more like the traditional Resident Evil, to where you can't necessarily backtrack everywhere. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if you were to basically get to the point to where you're not locked behind the next area, um, I think that would more or less be your open world game. I mean, basically, imagine RE4 remake to where that bridge didn't go up at the castle. Imagine if you could go back to the village, or imagine if you could hop on that little ski jet or whatever and travel between the island and the castle. If you were to just do those two things, that's an open world game. If you think about it, I mean, you can literally
Yeah.
backtrack the entire map. So if they do it like that, I think it'll be okay. But I don't quite think that you can go around like Dead Island and just kill zombies all day. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you can have zombies spawn if you go all the way back to where you began. Um, but basically, in short, I feel if they do open world, it still needs to have a form of claustrophobia, not just running around freely where you can just walk around in circles and that's it.
Yeah, you're surviving 100% all the time. There is no. Well, I'm glad you said it because, like, talking about Outbreak and all that, because for Outbreak, the original games, you had your levels. You could do slightly different things to experience these
Mhm.
levels. Um, man, I kind of like the idea. Like, this is kind of a weird game to bring up, but I was playing PUBG with my brother. You drop into the world,
Mhm.
and as the static field or whatever starts coming down on you, people start running out, your supplies start kind of running out unless you can pick somebody off and take their supplies. And I think
Mhm.
I mean, especially with the way graphics and everything's are today, I think it'd be cool. Like you would get, like, say, maybe like the Arkley Forest. That in the
Yeah.
center of the Arkley Forest is the Spencer Mansion. You'd have Raccoon, the Raccoon part of Raccoon City, where you'd have like the Resident Evil 3 original streets around it, and then in the middle you would have the RPD, and then you could have a few teams of people where they
Mhm.
drop in and, like, in certain areas had certain supplies. But instead of having like a static thing that kind of choked you out, is that maybe the outer skirts of the cities, the zombies started pushing in. So at
Mhm.
that point, at first when you're playing, you're running through, there's only a couple zombies in the street. You're getting your supplies and all that stuff, trying to build your character. Maybe you're in the hospital, so you see more, was it more melee weapons, maybe more health items.
Mhm.
You start near like the, I don't know, like the lows or something, and you get more, like, I don't know, some cool, I guess, better melee weapons, but less medical supplies. And you just, depending where you spawn or whatever, your little team of people, you find different items, and then maybe you come together with other group of people where you decide to help them. And I think what would make it, like, more difficult is that, how do you leave the map? As the zombies start showing up and they start dropping tyrants and nemesis or whoever on the groups to start hunting people, because, like, maybe if
Mhm.
one player is doing for good and building up a certain amount of points, that's who nemesis is going to chase. That is
Yeah.
stars member number one. Something akin to that. And then, like, maybe like, hey, and then, like, randomly around the map, like, oh, this rooftop, there's going to be an umbrella helicopter landing there. You need to hurry up. Well, then a team of like six people can get up there, and there's only three seats.
Oh, that's
So
pretty cool, actually.
what are we going to do now? But then you see these team of 3 versus 3. We're like, we're no longer friends. We're now stabbing, and we're now stabbing somebody in the back. And then, or you decide to go into the sewers, and that's where, like, the leech monster from Resident Evil Outbreak shows up, and you're trying to
Mhm.
get through that while the zombies are falling down. But like I said, the threat just keeps, the environmental threat just keep getting worse. And you can maybe go back to the streets, but all those
Yeah.
supplies that you saved up, like, you're going to have to be ready. You're gonna have like you got one shot. Do not mess this up to get to wherever you want. Because I think it was Escape from Tarkov and games like that.
Mhm.
They have a bunch of little different exits, and you have to do little mini games to open these exits up. So like, and that's the whole point of some of these Resident Evil games is to find the exit.
Yeah.
Make the exits weird, make them different, make them random. Because the more randomness you have to it, even though let's say you're working towards whatever, maybe Nemesis blows it up, and now you can't use that exit. And then you see the little beam of light saying, "Hey, the helicopter's here," or the train. So we're going to get into
Mhm.
the facility, get down there, and try to push through all that to get on the train and hopefully not get left. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
that was a lot.
you could even do things like how you're saying with the buddy system, you could even like, when like how with most Resident Evil games, there's like a timer, a bomb to go off or whatever. Imagine if you had to get to that destination, but it required teamwork to get there. Like for example, let's say there's a ladder section, but that ladder's broke. So you actually have to have your teammate to help lift you up, and then you have to help lift them up. Meanwhile, maybe your buddy or your third friend is trying to fight off zombies or whatever that's getting to you guys to give you all enough time to do things. I think that
Yeah.
you could do, and maybe you could even betray them, like how you're mentioning, near the end. That would be pretty
Mhm.
cool. And one thing I feel like they could do if you were, because obviously to have an area that big, at least with today's technology, I don't think is possible because you're talking to sewer, city, all that together. But
Yeah.
what you could do, you could have kind of like what I was talking about with Resident Evil 4. And I guess it's better demonstrated. You probably haven't seen this game because a lot of people haven't played it because it was exclusively for the Oculus Quest, or I'm sorry, Meta Quest. It was The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. In that game, it's an open world game, but you use a boat to travel to different parts of the game. So while
Yeah.
you can't travel throughout every single stage that's connected, because they're not connected, you can't just go from one part of town to a whole other part of the city. You have to travel between parts. But each part you get to, though, is completely open world. You actually have to go find supplies. You have to, and you come across strangers. Some of them try to rob you, or some of them ask you for help, and they will give you a reward. Sometimes you come
Yeah.
across people fighting each other, and you can get into the mix of it. Um, so if they were limited in that aspect, they could even go something like that route. Like maybe you could go around how you were saying, like in the sewer system, and then maybe you could find a way to, I don't want to say fast travel, but pretty much load into the city, you know.
Yeah.
So if they were ever limited by that chance, they could still pull it off, I feel like. Um, and maybe you could even come across survivors, maybe you could come across some people that try to kill you, um, or some people that try to help you and they die anyways. Um, because I feel like that another thing about Resident Evil is that you see a lot of citizens, but you don't really get a whole lot of interactivity. You know, to me, I think the closest we saw was
Yeah.
in the Resident Evil 3 remake. Whenever you see some people in the streets, or in the original game, whenever you see some people get eaten, or like that girl who's like, "Oh, help me," and she runs away.
In the
You could do
distance.
some things, you know. But one of the last things I was going to touch on is and obviously you have a big selection back there, but what's some of your favorite merch you have, if not your most prized possession?
Probably glad you asked. Let me go ahead and grab one of my favorite ones. Let me do scoot over here. So my favorite one, I mean, because I got the Resident Evil 7 house. I got the
Mhm.
NECA Resident Evil Nemesis. I got I don't know if you ever heard of the organic figures, but they're kind of rare. I got them up there. I got everything, but honestly, dude, my favorite one is my Resident Evil Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller.
Oh
And I actually got
man.
to use it. Oh man, it is sweet. And the crazy story how I got because as a kid I wanted one, right? But I couldn't get my hands on it. It was sold out. Couldn't find it. Nothing. And one time I saw it at I think I was in my mid 20s. I saw it at like a was it a flea market, right? And I
Mhm.
saw it. I was like, oh dang! And I literally walked over to whoever I was with, And I was like, because it might have been a girlfriend at the time or something. I was like, hey, let me see, because I think I have my wallet in her backpack or something. I was like, hey, let me see my wallet. This thing's like $100. I got to get it. And dude, I literally 5 minutes there, 5 minutes back, and it was gone. I was
Oh,
so depressed, bro. I was
dude, that
like
depresses me.
heartbroken. Dude, I was like, how? He's like, yeah. He's like, dude, I just sold it. I was like, because I didn't really
Oh,
know anything about eBay or anything like that, because I didn't really mess with the internet a whole bunch, in like my like early 20s or whatever. Like I had a little like Facebook and stuff, but just I mean, I didn't I didn't really even mess with like YouTube until like I think my early
mhm,
20s. I was just wasn't on the internet a whole bunch, and I was on eBay and I saw this on like I guess Goodwill does auctions, right? They have like a little their own little eBay channel or something, and this
yeah.
thing popped up, and it was just like uh what was it, chainsaw controller? I don't know. It had some weird name to it. And I just happened to like see it. I'm like, dude, there's no bids on this thing, and no one's been paying. It's been up here for like 2 days, and dude, I hung out and I got it for I want to say like $200 maybe.
That's actually a pretty
Like
good price because they go for a lot of money.
and I thought maybe there was something wrong with it, but it has everything. Got the cards with it, the controller, little, the what is it? I'll mess up on the now. Well, this thing's kind of stuck now. What the hell? Anywho, it's in dang near good. It's in almost like perfect condition, man. I'm
Yeah.
super happy with it, and it is like one of my number one pieces. I ain't gonna lie, man. If they happen to bury me when I'm old, man, it's gonna be with me. They
Yeah.
gonna resin my brain like what is this piece of plastic?
Yeah, and it's sad too because I bet that first one you found for really cheap. I wonder if like a mom bought it for the kid and just thought it was like a toy or something. I wonder if that happened. Because man, that's heartbreaking, especially if that was the case. Because some people just don't know what they have, man. But that's
Oh,
a great find because I mean, like I told you, I'm obviously a big Resident Evil 4 fan. I mean, hell, I have a whole shelf right here dedicated to just that game. Um,
yeah,
you know, it, I've actually wanted to get it, but I'm the type where I can wait. I can be as patient as I can be. If I ever see it for a good price, maybe 200, I'll get it. That's probably the most I'd
yeah,
spend for it. Um, but yeah, that's awesome. I've always wanted to get one of those.
yeah. No, that's what I think too. Because I think like 450. Some people like want
Hmm.
$500 for it, and I was
Yeah.
like, dude, there's no way. And like I saw it on there, and yeah, like I said, I got it. No
Mhm.
one, and then no one bid on it. Like I was the only person bidding on it. I was like, dude, there's no way this happening.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how like I got the what is it, the Resident Evil 7 house. Because I want to say to pre-order it was like $250 back when it first came out, and that's what I paid for it. I actually found
Yeah.
somebody that had one, just getting rid of it. I don't know if it was a lady that like maybe like her son was like, hey, just sell this stuff. I don't care. And I was like, dude, that's really the price that like I think that's the pre-order price. Like it might have been like 200 or something like that. I was like, shit, yeah, like, I'll buy it. Let's go. I was like, I'll come get it today. Like, I'll come get it today. You're like an hour away from me. I got you.
Oh, that's
And
worth every single mile, man.
dude, oh yeah, no, especially because like it just sits behind you. So sometimes I was coming here and just sit back, look at my little collection, man, and
Mhm.
man, I'm happy with it, dude. It's really it's really made a real big difference. Like this is like my little sanctuary, and
Yeah.
that's really some of my like I said, like because I've had this like a lot of my content nowadays is like it's from this
Mhm.
book, the Resident Evil Archives book, like the was it the old the Forgotten Lore, you know.
Yeah.
Like I literally was like, you know what, this stuff kind of writes itself instead of trying to make up new stuff. Like to those people that are able to do it, like oh you, I don't think I'm that creative, but I'll take some of this old information and kind of just bring it back and make my own little cuts and stuff. Like I'm glad this collection is like kind of doing stuff for me, and I get to make these little videos with it, especially doing like the interview and getting to have this stuff in the background, man. Like I got the little
Mhm.
welcome to the family shirt. I just man, just nerding out as much as possible.
Yeah, and you do a really great job on those shorts. I mean, I'm a huge geek about it. So, I know a lot of the information, um, but even with me knowing a lot about the series, they're still really nice 'cause it's a really nice little pinch of of, um, of history, of all the
Yeah.
BOWs and characters, and you guys do a great job, and your wife has a great voice too. Your wife could probably do audiobooks, honestly. She has a very nice, soothing voice, and you have a really nice
Yeah.
voice too in those videos, I mean, they're because, I find myself, watching some shorts, and those are nice because I'm like, "Oh my god, I forgot all about that." You know? And
Yeah.
honestly, whenever I was really diving into the lore of Resident Evil and actually learning about it, I wish I would have had those videos then because it really helps rather than watching a whole got 2, 3-hour video on something. You know, so yeah, I mean, you're doing a great job with that. I mean, and speaking of which, to kind of close off, I mean, is there anything else you plan on doing with your channel at some point?
Well, at this time, I'm gonna do my little shorts. I want to like really sharpen my skill when it comes to editing. I do
Mhm.
post up some old like Resident Evil Resistance, that old game that apparently nobody knows about or cares about anymore, and I'm actually having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
So I want to do maybe some more obscure, like maybe bring like Resident Evil Outbreak, do some little videos with some friends and all that. But
Mhm.
right now, I think I'm gonna focus on the old lore. I'm gonna keep doing
Mhm.
that. I want to do. Then I do have one video I'm kind of cooking up. A buddy of mine challenged me to try to find some information on the old Chimera, trying to see if I could find something that no one
Oh,
maybe remembers or anything.
that
So
would
I'm gonna
be a
try to
good
dig into
one.
that. So yeah, that's gonna be a challenge because there ain't much. There ain't much, and
Mhm.
so I'm gonna try to dig into that, see what I can get my hands on, and honestly, just see where the channel goes. Because I started kind of doing it. Like my wife kind of jumped into it, and she's
Mhm.
having fun with it. So we're gonna keep pushing, man. And I appreciate this opportunity to sit down and talk with me because watching some of your videos and all that, bro, like, dude, like you're a natural at it. Like you sitting there just you to turn the camera on and start talking. I like this is kind of difficult for me just talking. It's a little easier because me and you've kind of talked before, so this is more like
Mhm.
two buddies. But when I'm
Yeah.
actually trying to read a script or something like that, dude, it's so rough. But like with these, when I try to do my little like hello, welcome to the Resident Evil, it actually comes off a little
Yeah.
bit more natural because I'm like I think I'm pretending to be somebody else. I don't know, but
Mhm.
overall, man, it's a fun experience, and I'm happy that I actually am able to somewhat do it. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, and I appreciate that, and honestly, I'm the same way. A lot of times I'm weird because I have a script, and sometimes I follow the words exactly, but then some other times I kind of just, kind of have bullet points more or less. I mean, not actual bullet points, but basically I have a few lines. There's a foundation, and then I kind of just babble about it. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm still kind of figuring out that sweet spot because I'm bad for the same thing. I'll sit there and be like, okay, so today, I'll kind of talk slow and kind of stumble over my
Yeah,
words. So, I really have to sometimes I have to just cut and edit out a lot. And
yeah,
sometimes, you hear me like sounds like I'm just like eating the mic because I'm like, like in between some paragraphs, after talking a long
yeah,
time, which is weird because I can sit here and talk to you, for example, casually chatting without a lot of problems. But for some reason, I'm not sure if it's because it's just I'm subconsciously nervous about, sounding right. I don't know, but it's like I get out of breath for some reason. Whenever I'm, reading. But if I'm just naturally talking, I'm fine. Um, I
yeah.
guess it's kind of trying to focus on how I sound too, and that kind of just takes away my attention. I don't know. But I'm in the same boat. I know exactly what you mean. It's not as easy as a lot of people think it is to just read out loud.
Yeah, no, that was one thing whenever like some of the, YouTubers I talked to like for advice and all that. And I was like, man, maybe it's easy. I don't know. And then when I started
Mhm.
actually like my very first video I put together, I actually used the play share on the PlayStation. Everything's like this headset with that doing the cuts of the Resident Evil 5,
Mhm.
like whenever IGN was like, calling Resident trying to, redig up the whole Resident Evil racist stuff, I was like, well, I'm gonna
Oh
do me a
God.
little video Yes, I pulled up some of the articles and I put together this little
Yeah.
kind of mini kind of rant about it, just kind of putting all that information from back then and now into just this little nonsense rant. I was like, well, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet and to the point, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of Resident Evil 5 over it, and we're just gonna see how it goes. And like said, like Dead by Donovan, dude, that's actually not bad for having just the PlayStation to get that thing done.
Hmm.
And it really you like the work, man. Like when I'm learning the skills, using different programs to try to learn how to stuff like that. Like my computer, like I remember I was telling you about the DaVinci. It's like, oh, bro, use that. And then like I realized I was only using like 3 or 4 features for my videos, and then my computer
Yeah.
started lagging out. So I had to stop using. So just these little hiccups and things like that. It's a lot tougher than it looks, man. And I think it's humbled me, and it's been a frustratingly fun experience being able to put a little bit more into Resident Evil than I did before.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm the same way, I really like interacting with the community too, and finally, I mean, obviously, I became friends, so, I like doing things like that for that reason, you know. But, I mean, where else can people find you at though besides your YouTube channel?
So it's pretty much everything's gonna be at Serving Zombies. I do have a
Mhm.
Twitter that's actually at Dave of the Dead 2. I even have a TikTok channel that I will, mirror the content, but I have a Twitter and then I have my YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to see some somewhat interesting shorts about the old Resident Evil lore, that's what I'm gonna be making. And then hopefully, man, if you're not too busy, I know you mentioned something about some of that Resident Evil 5. I would be
Yeah.
down to play some Resident Evil 5 with you.
Yeah, I was actually gonna offer the same thing actually, yeah, and honestly, even what was it, Resistance, I've never got a chance to try that because 'cause I've never had anybody to play with, so, I mean, I may even try that with you, that'd be pretty fun because, I've never checked that game out personally because nobody plays it, you know?
I'll throw down, dude. If you like that game, will beat you up. And if you want to give it a go, oh, dude, I'll be happy. We can run through that. It can be real fun, but like since it's an old game, like the meta has already been figured. Like some either the people that don't know what's going on, or they already know the meta, and it's just
Yeah.
a cluster of that. So man, yeah, I'm down all day. I'm down all day.
Alright. Well, that sounds good, man. I mean, I appreciate having you on. And like I said, for anybody watching, I'll have links to all that below. Um, Me personally, I actually found his channel, because you were commenting on my videos, but I always like checking out other creators and other unique content, and I like it because you have unique content that a lot of people don't really do. So yeah, if anybody wants to know more about the lore, and even if, like, again, me, I know a lot about it, but those little bite-sized videos are really nice, and having the visuals of things is pretty cool. I like it a lot, honestly, and I highly recommend anybody go check it out. Because I've told you in private, like I think you've really hit gold in some ways, and yeah, I'm looking forward to your content, man. And like you said, maybe we can do something else at some point.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I appreciate the time and all that stuff, but I ain't gonna lie, man. It's bedtime for me. So,
Yeah,
Raccoon City Pizza, sir. I thank you again, and till next time, my friend.
yeah. All right, see you later, buddy.